Are you the kind of person that builds community, or are you the kind of person that fights for your own individual survival?
From Dred Scott to deportation, as LDF said, right, that we actually have some type of protection of our citizenship.
It doesn't require a war for us to get to the point where we have to rely on these things.
Because if the president and Congress decides to reinstate a military draft, our boys would certainly be on the front line.
Well, the idea is not to scare you. The idea is to force us into conversations where we think about how we solve for them.
We all are so excited to welcome Sharon Ross, better known as an Afrovivalist.
I have a backup, my backup, to my backup, to my backup.
My question is about weaponry.
Their intention is to turn people against people.
To join me on my 65 acres, you have to have a year's supply.
I live blocks from the White House. I don't know if I feel safer there, or do I feel like more of a target?
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reasoned Choice Media.
Welcome
home, y'all. This is episode 85 of Native Land Pod, where we give you our breakdown on all things politics and culture. We're your hosts, unless they changed from last week, Tiffany Cross, Angela Rye, and I'm Andrew Gillum. What's up, y'all?
Hey, AG.
What's up, Andrew? What are we talking about today?
Well, great question. I will yield to you first. What you want to talk about?
Okay. I am a little nervous about what's happening in Iran, but not so much about what's happening there. I'm really curious about how it impacts us. So like what happens if, a nuke hits the United States, or what happens if it's just the fall of society and government is not functioning? How will we survive? And I'm interested in that because Angela, at the State of the People tour, had a whole simulation around what would happen, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it.
Interesting. Angela, what's up?
Well, I want to make sure that I give you all the video that we can drop on this show, by the way, from that simulation. But I also, I want to talk about survival skills. I know we have a guest joining us to talk about just that. And it feels very urgent to me that we're a little unprepared. I don't know if it's my Homeland Security background or what, but you go to ready.gov right now, and they've even taken down a national infrastructure security report that we would normally go to rely on for what happens if the electric grid is attacked.
Well, they don't want y'all to survive. Finally, y'all, I think I'd love for us to just get a little conversation going about what happened this week in New York's very important race for mayor. So let's get into it. Well, y'all heard what we're talking about today, but before we get going, we want to remind you that if you like this show and you want to show us some support, the easiest way is to give us a rating, leave a comment, text an episode to a friend, or just tell somebody about Native Land Pod. Thank you in advance. We're counting on you to help us spread the word.
Andrew, speaking of spreading the word, we actually, one of our regular viewers who sends in questions all the time, I just want to remind the viewers, please send in a video of yourselves with questions, comments. If we say something you agree with, disagree with, this is a conversation with you. We're not three people talking at you. So we so appreciate when y'all send in videos. And this brother has sent in a lot. So let's hear from him.
Hey, Native Land folks. This is Ernest Champel once again. I'm inside today, so it's not going to be loud and noisy like you guys clowned me on before. But anyway, just want to make a comment about why it's important that Black people are concerned about the Iran, Israel, and now the United States war. You remember World War II? That war was fought in Europe. But when the United States got pulled into it, hundreds of thousands of Black GIs, including both my grandfathers and a great uncle, and I'm sure you guys have relatives who were in the war, got drawn into it. They got drafted into it. They had to go fight. Let's fast forward to the Vietnam War and the Korean War. Black people had to go fight. Let's fast forward again, and the Iraq War. And once again, young brothers had to go fight. And I remember living in Washington, D.C. near the old Walter Reed. And I would see soldiers coming back who lost their legs. And these young men were mad and angry. And so a lot of people are like, well, I got to deal with issues here in America. But you got to understand, everything's related, especially when it comes to economics. So get ready for gas prices to go up because the Iranians are going to cut off the spigot And whatever oil's passing through that Strait of Hormuz is going to get stuck because you got all this fighting.
Oh, Ernest, well, thank you for that. And we thank you for being inside. We clowned you with love, my brother.
Same way we do Andrew when he be talking in the middle of our intro.
We yes, and we are so grateful that you take the time, one, to listen to us every week, but also to drop a video and offer your questions and commentary. And that's such a good point that he made. Because should Congress and the president reinstate the military draft, our boys would be at risk first. And so, Cadet Bone Spurs, as we know, did not. He was a draft dodger, and Donald Trump, but he is all too willing to put us in a position to have our boys go and fight in a war that they did not start. So thank you for that perspective. This is why we like having conversation with our viewers, and we love hearing your points. Andrew, I'm concerned because the last time we were all together, the United States had not bombed Iran, the Fordo site. Now we understand that we have not even really disrupted their nuclear process. So at this point, I am thinking about, that's why at the State of the People tour in Baltimore, one of my favorite parts, we were just walking through, a group of us, me, Joy Reid, Demario Solomon Simmons, we were just walking through, and Michael Harriot and his wife Karen. And Angela said, do you guys even know what you're walking through? We were like, no, what is this? It was like just shelves with empty food. And it was an entire simulation of what happens should society fall. And Iran is not the only way that society can fall. If we get hit by a nuke, the coastal cities are done. All of us live in coastal cities. And so you might have a situation where it's just middle America that's left. There's no functioning government. What does that look like? So I'm a little nervous about it. I don't know. I want to hear from Andrew, but Angela, I want to hear from you because you were talking about in our pre-production call some 5-point plan or 5-action plan or something. So I'm just curious what y'all think about all of that and how nervous y'all are.
Andrew, are you going?
I thought you were going. Okay.
Either one, whomever.
You go.
Okay. Andrew's sink is leaking. So I would just say he focused.
It really is. It's a true story.
Focused. Yeah. So just like, just in case of crisis.
I got the issues out of order. I was taking, so you go.
Okay, no worries. So what we did in Baltimore was create what is commonly been known as tabletop exercises, or I was calling a 5 points activation. And the reason we did this is to ensure that our folks could get ready. Again, we spent a lot of time telling people all of the things that can happen and, all of the crises that we are just one step away from experiencing, but not a lot of time on how we prepare for them. So if all of this is inevitable, it seems to me that our most reasonable service is getting people at least primed to think about how they would respond. So our first activation point was a convenience store, where there was nothing left on the shelves and they were in the middle of a food and water supply shortage. How do you respond if there's no food on the shelves, and even in the convenience store? Y'all know that, like, if you can't find nothing else, that 7-Eleven might have that toilet paper you looking for. People experienced that during the pandemic. So if you go there and there's nothing, now what do you do? Do you know about the black vendor that sells toilet paper? Can you order in bulk? Do you know about the folks down the street that have a natural spring and you can get bottled spring water? Do you know about the local black farmers that produce different types of crops and produce and, all of these things? Do you know about them? Are you connected to them? The second point was one where the electric grid was attacked and power had been out for 30 days. We had someone acting, Eugene was acting, even the battery operated candles, like people will be like, oh, well, I'll be good because I have these candles. What happens if you don't have the right batteries? What are you going to eat? Do you have the type of meals where you can mix it with hot water and you now have meals for a little while? Do you have enough bottled water? Like whatever, all those things. The third point was if the cell phone towers are down completely and there's no internet either, we rely on these things so that we can organize ourselves around this. I can call my parents. Don't worry, if I can't drive because the power goes out and my car is stuck in the garage, I'll call an Uber. Are you? Can you?
And whose number do you even remember? Like, I don't remember a lot of people's numbers anymore.
Yeah.
When we were younger, we could dial. Right.
That's it. So whose numbers do you know by heart? If you can't, if you have those phone numbers, but the cell phone towers are down, do you have a satellite phone? Did you know about satellite phones, right? The next bunker or the next activation was a bunker. If there's a white supremacist attack, like the J6ers, who are basically running the country at this point, attack Black folks, just like they're doing, we're wearing random ICE uniforms. We don't even know if these are actual ICE officers. What happens if the attack comes to your front door, or at least on your block? Are you prepared? Do you know how to defend yourselves? Do you have the tools necessary to defend yourselves? The final activation point, which I thought was the most scary, and we're starting to see it become more and more real every day, is the ICE holding facility. And officers were grabbing people off the line as they came through and zip tying them and sitting them along the floor. We had a surveillance of that. And what happens? There was a recording that said, you're at an ICE holding facility. You don't have any rights. You don't have a call you can make. You can't call your lawyer. Bathroom breaks are at 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and we'll give you water when we have it. There's no food right now. How do you respond in an environment like that? How do you know to get your folks out? Do you know where to find them? Is there what is the thing that we put together to ensure that from Dred Scott to deportation, as LDF said, right, that we actually have some type of protection of our citizenship, which is hanging in the balance right now?
Yeah.
Well,
so Angela, those are the 5 points.
That's amazing. I'm scared again, but that's amazing.
Well, the
Angela,
idea is not to scare you.
great...
The idea is to force us into conversations where we think about how we solve for them. They are scary, Tiff. I'm not going to lie to you. But for me, the one thing that gave me solace, besides the ICE one, which is really scary and I don't have a solve for it, we do have answers for most of those. They're expensive too. You know, like can we all pool together to buy a generator? If the electric grid goes out, can we do that? So anyway.
Well, Andrew doesn't have a sink right now. So what? I'm curious. How are you?
Go get some water. Go get some water from the backyard, and
But you do have different considerations, though, because you have 3 children, you have a wife. And to be honest with you, look, forgive me, feminists, if this sounds sexist, but truly, if there is a man around, we all looking to you. Like, you got to figure out, I'm going to take care of myself, but if I was at your house, Andrew, I would be looking to you. You have to figure out how to get us out of here safely. And your whole family's going to be looking to you in that moment, daddy and husband. What's your plan for us to get out of here safely?
And as we know, we've all got lots of friends, single and otherwise, that, you had a household, you got to care for the whole thing. I was trying to explain to my kids how they have to set the example when their friends come over for how to treat our home. Because if you don't know how to take care of your home and set the expectation that if you drop a thing that's food on the floor, you should pick it up immediately, because we don't want that squished into the wood floor of our home. To take some pride in that, but to take that to its logical extension, we do have to be prepared. What I was thinking about when I was listening to some of the scenario playing is that it doesn't require a war for us to get to the point where we have to rely on these things. I mean, I live in Florida. We deal with hurricanes. I mean, it feels like, year round. And in some ways, it's many years round because, in some instances, you're 3-4 years later, still trying to recover from a storm that affected your home back then. And yes, crises also show up. But I think this is important. And this is why our guests who we'll be bringing on in a few, I think is going to be relevant for our audience. And that is, you just never know. And in the context of war, when we are seeing nations and nation states move away from, wars showing up in the form of military troops, landing and disembarking and walking down streets, that's going to be our home front issue vis-a-vis. Look at what we see happening under this president in California and elsewhere. But when you deal with players that are not let's say, vast as the United States with regard to its military capacity, many of them are going to the systems that disrupt the things that we rely on every single day. So what happens if through the push of a button over the internet from anywhere, someone can shut your grid down? Someone can contaminate your water system where you live. Someone can decide that they're going to play with the lights at this intersection and that intersection and turn out the whole city. What it is that we do to to survive that, because when it gets real, y'all, and this is really what the power of that kind of warfare suggests, is that their intention is to turn people against people. So you take away people's food for long enough, we become pretty much a pariah.
Primitive.
We are going to survive for ourselves and for our families. And when it gets even more scarce, even deadlier and more harmful decisions start to get made, because what do we all know to be the truth at the base of all humanity? And that is that man wants to survive. The body is built to do such a thing, and you'll do whatever is required in order to survive. So looking forward to that conversation.
Well, I want to say quickly, because I want to talk about the mayoral race really quickly, but I just want to say during the Holocaust, like, you had older people snatching food from babies because it was just primitive survival instincts that kicked in that you needed to eat. I am down here in one of those black towns I told y'all about at the home of Michael Harriot. And when I tell you guys, like, his whole setup, like, they are growing their own, to Angela's point, everything Angela was saying, I was thinking, I feel so safe right now. If something happened right now, we do have all the things Angela talked about. It sits on 22 acres of land. There are multiple gardens, so we could survive, sustain ourselves here. I'm saying we, like I live with Michael and his wife. But we have
sound like you didn't move
family.
in.
Yeah, she has.
I'm hiding things here so I don't have to pack them every time I come. But
You just got to plan how to get there.
It's that's another thing. If you have to flee your area and airports are down, everybody's going to be on the train tracks. Everybody's going to be on the highway. Are you the kind of person that builds community, or are you the kind of person that fights for your own individual survival? I think I'm the kind of person, I know I'm the kind of person who would build community. You're welcome to walk with us. But being here, they are pretty much off the grid. The house runs on well water. They're growing potatoes, carrots, onions, garlic, everything. This house is well protected. I'll say that, because I don't know if Michael Harry wants me to tell all his business, but it's well protected. Like, we would all be able to defend ourselves.
When we talk with our guests, that we can dig into what are the advantages for those folks who aren't living in more ruralized areas and still want to survive, but they don't have the land to grow their own. They may
I
not
live
have
blocks from the White House, Andrew.
Right.
Like,
I know where you live.
I don't know. You know very well where I
that.
live. I don't know if I feel safer there, or do I feel like more of a target. You know, and I can't, because in DC, you all know, you will see snipers on the roof. That's normal, you know, because, like, oh, a dignitary is probably coming down this street today. And, you know, clearly that's the Secret Service. You know, will Iranians, or not, I don't want to just pin it on Iranians. Will any enemy say, I'm going to try to take out this White House and, like, Khaleesi, who cares who's in the surrounding area? Or will it be a bunch of sleeper cells awakened and individuals committing random acts of violence, and trying to be prepared for both? And I live alone. So, you know, getting plans of action among our social groups if the network is down. It's like, okay, you got an hour after something happens to walk to my house, and then we're going to flee. Gas stations, if you don't have gas for your car, like, how will you drive? The gas stations are going to be packed. So anyway,
y'all,
they're having panic attacks right now.
Questions.
Yes.
We've got all the questions, which I think we hopefully get to and start to get y'all some answers as we bring our guests on.
Sharon
but before
Ross.
we get there,
Mamdani.
in case you missed it, don't be embarrassed. There was a race held this week in New York. A pretty big deal for those in the city of New York, because it included, well, hell, a bunch of candidates, one of which was the former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who had been leading the race the entire time. And then as a result of the elections, when people got out to be able to decide, they told us what they wanted. Let's run this clip and see what people chose.
Republicans are slamming Mamdani as anti-capitalism and anti-Semitic for criticizing Israel, which he denies. He says he's focused on the cost of living.
We have won because New Yorkers have stood up for a city they can afford. A city where they can do more than just struggle. One where those who toil in the night can enjoy the fruits of their labor in the day.
Yeah, so we saw and got to hear the news media on the introduction to Zohran's speech wanted to typecast this race as sort of being about, frankly, the big national issues. And it sounds to me, based off of the little and very limited following that I was able to do from, just down here in Florida, it sounded to me like this brother really leaned into the everyday issues that appear to be showing up for people. How do I, get groceries under Trump's economy and still be able to enjoy the quality of life that I thought I was going to enjoy, living here? They're talking about housing. They're talking about rent rates and how it is that corporate New York has really taken over so much of the real estate and made it quite unaffordable for regular everyday people to live in the city. I just wanted to quickly share with y'all that some of the surprise in the outcome of this race was really born about because the money advantage was so significant, obviously, for the former governor. The former governor also, in the lead up to the election, Mamdani enjoyed significant black support throughout the city. He began to close the spread of support amongst black voters throughout New York in the lead up to the election, collapsing that quite a bit and obviously running away with it. I'm curious to know from the two of you real quick is whether or not you think this has greater implications for the city of New York, or is there a message here for Democrats as they figure out how it is they run and win elections again?
Yes, there is a message here. So I have to say, because I understand if you don't live in New York, you might be thinking, well, why do I care about the New York City mayoral race? But it's so important because to me, it shows that you can still inspire people. He ran on a very progressive platform. He was a state assemblyman, an immigrant who lived in Queens, born in Uganda. He was a part of this rap group. So there are all these videos of him with all this flavor, rapping with in this rap group. He's Shia Muslim, married to a Syrian woman, and it's such an important story. In transparency, we have a friend in the race. Well, somebody we know, who I would call a friend in the race. Anyway, Angela. Y'all, if you're listening, Angela's making a face. Anyway.
I just praying, talking to Jesus.
Okay. I have a friend in the race, and I really value people who have conviction in their beliefs. Mm-hmm. And Mamdani had conviction in his beliefs. When they asked that, he is not running for leadership in Israel. He is running for leadership in New York City. And the way the media, the political elite, the donor class all tried to crush this man's campaign because he did not have some undying loyalty to Israel. He defends Israel's right to exist just as he does with the Palestinian people. And so the friend that I have in the race hedged a little bit and completely reversed something. He was highly critical of Israel. And then because all this pressure around him, he walked back his words. And it's like, oh, well, I didn't mean that when I said it. And it was disappointing to see. So I was out loud and proud and happy to support Mamdani in this race. And to me, why it matters if you don't live in New York, it just shows you can be who you are authentically. And if you jump out there and take a chance and run for office, support somebody who's running for office, take some sort of action, there can be victory. All you people who ask about third parties, well, third parties, you're very seduced by the president. Can we elect a president who's a third party? Mamdani happens to be a Democrat, but a third party person could have run on that same platform and won this race. It wasn't about the party. It was about what he was saying, making public transportation free, freezing rent, and those things resonated with the people of New York. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be more to watch here, everybody. So if you're listening, know that these were the primary races that were held this past week, and that there is still a possibility that candidate Cuomo, former governor of New York, may file to run in this race and go to the general election by running as an independent. And so lots to watch.
Cuomo, don't do that. And if New York, you have a chance to send a message to America right now by doing something progressive. And I applaud you all for electing Mamdani as your candidate that you're taking to battle. But please do not put Andrew Cuomo. He and Trump share the same donors. It's like we always say, white supremacy is nonpartisan. Not that he's a white supremacist, but they share a lot of the same supporters. So, anywho. Angela, I know you live in Seattle and you're like, I am not really into this mayoral race, but what I think you are into is the message it sends.
Yes, I will tell you the one thing that I've been following on social, especially, is the number of folks who have felt encouraged by this. It's really hard to come out of November last year and not feel all the hopelessness and be like, well, what do we have to do? Like, there's no point. And also, it gives me, I have some questions about these election results still, because I don't understand. I'm talking about from November, not from Brother Man winning yesterday. This week. I want people to remember that there's always something we can do, even when it does feel hopeless. You might not be able to see it. But the Bible talks about midnight, and a lot of us were raised in the church, and we always hear that midnight is the darkest hour, but dawn has to break at some point. So congratulations to New York on the dawn breaking sooner for y'all than the rest of us, but the dawn is breaking, it sounds like.
Well, Angela just broke open the opportunity for those of us who are still in survival mode to get back to surviving. So this sounds like a great time to bring in our guest. All right, time for our guest, and I'm so excited. We all are so excited to welcome Sharon Ross, better known as an Afrovivalist. And yes, we're going to get into all of what that means. Sharon Ross, thank you so much for joining us. You would do a much better job saying what you do and what is an Afrovivalist. Before you joined the show, we were all talking about how we're concerned about surviving when all of the structural parts of society have collapsed. What does that look like? And you walk it like you talk it, because you don't just teach about that life, you're living that life. So walk us through who you are and what is an Afrovivalist.
Hi, everybody. I'm Afrovivalist. I am a African American survivalist. Put that together and it's Afrovivalist. So I came up with that because I am my father's son. Growing up, he was a Marine. And my little sister was too prissy to hang out with him, and I was the tomboy. So that's why I say I'm my father's son. And he is the one who started me on my journey to learning how to hunt, learning how to protect myself. I grew up in a all-white community, which is where I ended up today. But and I had to learn how to survive in an all-white community in the early 70s. So I grew up hunting with him and fishing and learning how to harvest animals and all of that. And after I graduated from high school, I moved on to Houston and then came back here because that was a culture shock in Houston for me. It was too many people and not enough woods for me. So I had to come back. And long story short, in my 30s, I decided that it was around Katrina that the aha moment came upon me and said, I do not want to be like them suffering. I want to prepare and get ready for whatever it is to come my way. And so that's where my journey started on preparing and being a prepper and getting back out in the woods and hunting and doing my journey. People thought I was crazy. I've lost many friends because of it. But granted, they're slowly coming back because they're realizing I'm not that crazy lady anymore.
There it is.
Right. And so I started, teaching a little bit to other people about it. It was hard to get other people, 10 years ago. Sorry about my dog. 10 years ago.
Love it. He's welcome.
10 years ago to try to get people to understand that, hey, something may happen to us here in the Pacific Northwest, especially, the big earthquake that the Pacific Northwest is supposed to have. I mean, we're 12 years behind. So they're saying we're supposed to have a big one. Even with people knowing that, I was still the crazy cuckoo, conspiracy theorist, all of that. And so slowly people started asking me to join them and give presentations and classes and whatnot. And when it came to COVID, people were going crazy in my office on, oh my God, I need to go get supplies. And I was telling people then, before it got to the States, because I don't watch local news, I watch international news. And international news was telling us the truth. So I was telling people, y'all really need to take this COVID thing that's going over in China seriously, because it's going to come to us. And they're like, yeah, whatever. You're stupid. You're crazy. You know, whatever. And so I started ordering my respiratory mask and everything that I was needing. And they already knew that I was prepping. So I had my food, I had water, I
I
was
love
good
it.
to go. I was good to go.
Well,
So
you were
whenever
smart to do that. I'm so sorry to interrupt, just because we're tight on time, but you were so smart to do that. But I definitely want Angela to be able to jump in and ask you a question, because she just did this great simulation, and we want to equip our audience with some specifics of what they need. So Angela, I'm tossing it
All
to
right.
you.
Thank you so much, Tiff and Sharon, for joining us today. You have my ears perk up when you said Pacific Northwest. I'm born and raised in Seattle, and I moved back home last summer full time. I've been splitting time between here and LA, and before that between LA and DC. But I wanted to first say that I hope I can put you in my emergency friend. We are going to do 5 people that we need to be connected to in this Armageddon we about to go into. So hopefully I can put you on my list. I'm gonna save and remember your 10-digit phone number. But I also want to say that I think
So
it's really important. Yes.
let me just say, to be in my group, you need a year's worth of supplies. If you plan on coming, if you get the invitation to join me on my 65 acres, you have to have a year's supply for every person in your family, or you're not getting past the gate.
This is excellent, Sharon. This is perfect. So can you talk us through, one, how have you prepared yourself to survive? I hear you saying 65 acres. When you say a year's worth of supplies, walk us through this like we slow and low kids. We don't know. So talk to us about how we prepare and we get Sharon Afrovivalist ready. We want to get it right. We want to get it right. So tell us I'm taking notes. What are the supplies we need for a year?
So
Or is that where you would start?
where you start is in your kitchen. Look through your cabinets and find any and all shelf life stable foods, meaning rice, beans, canned foods, dried foods, which is dehydrated or freeze dried foods. Pull all of that out, put it in a tote, and put it aside. And that's where you're going to start with your pantry supplies. And then after that, you want to start going to your food pantries. If you look up, I think if you Google food pantries near me, it'll pop up every food pantry in the United States. And you can literally find what's in your area. I would guarantee, I would suggest that you go to every pantry that you can that will allow you to get food. The fastest way to build up your pantry supplies is going to a food pantry. Save your money for now, because you're going to need a generator, you're going to need water purification systems, and if this war pops off, you're going to need a full face mask with the respiratory filters. There's a lot. So I always tell people to try to save your money and utilize the food pantries first. Now, people look at me and say like, oh, but I work full time, I'm taking from other people. But keep in mind that from me, I used to volunteer at pantries. We threw away a lot of food, because people had the nerve to be picky. You're getting free food and they had the nerve to be picky about it. And so at the end of the day, we would have to throw that food out. So I still recommend everyone to go hit the
you
pantries.
reference, Sharon, a generator and a water purification system. A lot of folks talk about not getting generators because they're cost prohibitive. Can you talk to us about reasonably priced generators, reasonably priced water purification systems? In your remarks, you mentioned getting a generator and a water purification system. Can you talk to us about reasonably priced water and water purification systems and generators, and if that is what is required for your years-long supply to go on your 65 acres?
So I'm going to kind of eliminate my 65 acres from it because I'm fully established here now. And if you guys are just starting, you can't start where I'm at. So
Yeah.
I would say use your water catchments also. Use your roofing. If you live in a house, use the water from your gutter and to have that drain into a 55-gallon water barrel. And because you can use that water later on to purify it, to drink, to bathe in and whatnot. Um, and then the best, I like, the best water purification system would be Sawyer, which is Sawayer. They have a household system that you can use, set up to your system, and it's a drip system that goes into a container that you would need to use. For a generator, if you're living in a house and the electricity goes down, you're going to need one of those. And right now, generators are a hot item because people who are going through these natural disasters are buying generators. I mean, I have 5. I mean, people are like, yeah, you're doing too much. But you know what? I have a backup, my backup, to my backup, to my backup.
That's real.
I mean, when I find
I
them on
love it.
sale, I buy them.
Yeah.
So there, you got your water purification system, you got your generator, and another thing I would also recommend is a solar generator. So you go out and buy. I use. Let me show you. I am now plugged into Jackery, and
What? And say more about Jackery.
say it again.
Can you explain that to
So
the listening
Jackery
audience?
is a solar generator. So you hook this to your solar panels and it will charge and it will get full up to 100%. I don't know if you can see that, but I have 74% on here. But when I plug
And
it
it'll
in,
hold the electric power. It'll
yes,
hold it. You know,
it
a
will.
system can. Yeah. Okay.
And this is a little one. This is just for my laptop, my cell phone. But I have a bigger one that's over there that's running, that's being charged right now for the generator. And that's the one that I use at night. So during the day, I use the small one. And then the larger one I use at night. So during the day, when the generator is running, I'm running the big one to make sure that's 100%. Once it gets to 100%, I disconnect it, turn it off. And then when it
Wow.
gets to nighttime, I turn it back on. And that's what I use at night if I want to watch a movie or something like that. But Jackery, I recommend. This one I found on sale for $199. The bigger ones, they can be in the thousands. But I recommend
Got
them
it.
Wow.
because they will come with your solar panels and they work great. When I have the
That's good
Jackery,
advice.
when I have the Jackery plugged into the solar panels, believe it or not, they charge faster on the solar panels by the sun than they do from the generator.
Wow.
So
Well,
that's
well,
what I,
Miss Sharon,
yes.
I have a quick question as we were thinking about our listeners all across the country. You had alluded to in your earlier statements, if this war pops off, there are all kinds of scenarios that can lead people wherever they are in the country, whether they're living lifestyles similar to yours or in more urbanized areas, or they could be, you know, in rural South, but connected to the grid system. And so everything is pretty much provided when it comes to an urban service, if you will. So as we think about the kinds of scenarios that might lead people sort of down this road, I'd love to hear you articulate what maybe just some of those might be. And then second, if we accept that to be the case and we want to then make preparation, what would you recommend? You mentioned, you know, you're clearly at a much more advanced level, but for the rest of us that are out here who are comfortably where we are and just don't want to put at risk really life and health, should emergencies, you know, impact us, what kind of guidance would you offer around getting started?
So to get started, other than what I've already spoke about, is
Yes.
because what I think is going to happen is our enemies out there know that our power grid sucks. They know it's bad. They
Yes.
know it's 100 years old, etc. So I don't think, and I hope that they won't nuke us, if you know what I mean, by doing a ground attack. What I think may happen is they'll set something off above our atmosphere, and that will take down our whole grid. Once they do, or they will attack the substations. So we've got 55,000 substations in the United States. All they have to do is take out nine to take out the whole country. Okay. So that's why it's
Jesus.
important to get a solar system set up, get your solar set up and ready to go, just in case, because, they can't put out the sun. Well, they might, but the sun's going to be there for us. Then the electricity will be if an attack is taken upon us here in the United States.
There's
So
also
from
things like communicating via radio, like ham radio, but even just trying to find each other in the immediate aftermath of something happening. I've bore witness to this myself. I was at CNN at the time 9/11 happened, and you could not get in or out of DC. It was complete gridlock. Angela, I believe you were still in DC when an earthquake happened. You weren't there. This was like 2010, 2011. I thought you were still living there then, but there was an earthquake that happened in DC that reached DC, and another time where you couldn't really get in or out. My question is about weaponry. Because as Black people, we are in a unique position where, yes, we can fear an Iranian regime wanting to defend their land by striking us here domestically. However, we also have homegrown terrorism that is now operating out of the White House that has emboldened white nationalists, that actually employs white nationalists within the administration. So in terms of defending ourselves, I'm learning how to shoot a shotgun, but what kind of weaponry should we be thinking about, if any? Obviously, in states where it's legal and going through a legal process.
Right. So I was just going to say, if any, first find out if what you can carry. Go out and get your license to carry. Number one, be legal about it. Number two, go out and find. I would suggest to go to a range and just sample different firearms and see what you're comfortable with before you go out and purchase. And then once you purchase, go join a class and learn how to use that firearm properly. It is really important because, you still got people out there who think they can hold their guns like this, and that ain't the right way to hold a gun, and you got to learn the importance of that gun being on safety and why it should be on safety at all times until you're wanting to use it. So take those steps first and start researching what type of firearms you want. If anything, you would want something small enough to be on your person so you can be able to conceal it when you're going into a crowd or going into the stores or whatnot, because a lot of people they'll freak out when they nowadays when they see someone walking through the store with a gun on them. You want to make sure that it's concealed. It'll just cause you problems in the future if you're exposing yourself, because you got people out there who are going to be panicking or whatnot, thinking you're going to shoot up the store or whatnot. So just be careful with that.
The dog agrees with you, Angela.
Sharon, I was gonna ask. So you talked about the pantry. We talked about property. We haven't really talked as much about produce. Or the other things that we need to ensure that we're okay. So I don't know if there's a way that folks can tap in with you and learn, like, what is that down that list, of things that people need to survive for a year, whether they're on your property or not. What does that look like given the crises that is looming? We want to ensure that our listening audience and their family members are okay. I've learned a lot about satellite phones recently and the importance of having access to that. Tiff just talked about radio. What are the other things that we really need to be leaning into in these treacherous times?
You want to make sure that you have all of your medications, prescriptions. If you have to take a medication on a regular basis, talk to your doctor and see if you can get a minimum of a 3-month supply and start stocking up on meds. even over-the-counter medications. When you're going to the stores and you find, allergy medicines, diarrhea medicines that are on sale, buy them and just start
Mm.
stocking up on them. I stocked up on toothbrushes. So my routine when I was in the city before I moved here to my homestead, I would go to the dollar store, um, grocery outlet, and Ace Hardware. They were like on each corner. That's what I called my prepper corner. And I would go into grocery outlet and tell myself, okay, my limit is $1.99. And if I can buy something for $1.99, I can get as many as I want. So I would find toothbrush packets for $1.99, toothpaste, those dental
Mm.
floss things, anything for $1.99 and under, and I would buy those. Any canned foods that was $1.99, I'd buy. Any medications, and then sometimes I'd go in and say, okay, today's my $5 limit. I can buy anything $5
Mm.
or less and find them on sale, and that's another good way to stock up there.
Mm.
Um, you want to get a lot of your personal hygiene items, start stocking up on
Yeah.
that, on your soaps, on your detergents. um, I make my own laundry detergent, which consists of borax, baking soda, a washing powder, zote soap, and then a scented, what do you call those, the scented
A little
crystal.
smell good.
Yeah, the smell good.
Yeah.
If you get those, you combine all those two together, 1 tablespoon, I'm sorry, 1/4 cup is good enough for a whole load. So you don't need to
All
use
right.
a lot of it. Oh, and I also put OxyClean in that mixture too. So
Hmm.
you don't need a lot of it, and it lasts a long time. I'm on a 3-gallon bucket that I made, and I've still got like a year left of use
Wow.
from that. So things like that. Think about your soaps, because if you go out and buy those big soaps, the big block soaps, you can cut those down to like the hotel
Shave them
size
down.
soap. So one of those big soaps
Yeah.
can get you 12 of the hotel size soaps. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So think
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Mm-hmm.
Always think, okay, if I'm going to buy this, how long is it going to last me? And then can I stretch it? How long can I stretch it out? That makes sense?
Yeah.
That answer
Yeah,
Yes.
your
Miss
question?
Sharon, your advice has been really, really good for us, and we know we've got to get you out of here soon. But I wanted to just
Right.
ask if there are resources that you would recommend folks access from wherever they live. If it's going to a website that you find particularly helpful, or if there's an organization that you've connected with that you might want to recommend that folks go to get more information. I love if you could do that. And then I didn't hear the answer to it, so I just want to ask it one more time, and that is for radio communication. If satellites were to go down, are we talking analog? What
Yeah.
do you recommend for being able to be connected via comms?
Satellites will eventually go down, I think. Ham radios are good. I do have my ham radio license, but there is a radio etiquette to it. So you need to join a class and learn what that etiquette is, because it is FCC licensed and it is against the law to not follow their etiquette. And then if you don't want to use a ham radio, find a radio that's got a long range to it, and then give each one of those to your team members, and then start practicing to use it. Start creating your own
Mm,
code, so only you and your team will know what that code means. Okay.
got it.
Um, Satellite phones, that's a iffy because they're really expensive, and then they have an expensive monthly service. So unless you are using that every single day to get your money's worth out of it, um, satellite phones can be kind of iffy. There is an app on your phones. I think it's called Zello, Zello, and it's a walkie-talkie system. So go on your
Oh.
phone and find the apps that are off-grid apps that you can communicate with to other people.
Ah,
And you can set all your team members up on that, and you'd be able to utilize utilize that app through your phone off grid when the grid is down. So
yeah.
your phone you may not be able to make a call, but you'll be able to use that app as a radio to call your members.
Amazing.
Excellent.
Okay?
I love that.
Excellent advice, and I'm loving that you're recommending that you get practice with
Get
this
practice.
before an emergency hits.
Yes.
Yeah, and then resources was the other
Resources
that
when it
that you
comes,
recommend
which one?
to learn more about what it means. So
To survive right now.
survive,
Like,
not
do you
live
have a
off the grid.
website or? Yeah.
So of course, go to my website. So my website is it's a disaster because I had a web designer doing it and now he's gone and I can't get to my website. I can't update it, but it's still information there. To get current, go to my Facebook page, Afrovivalist Facebook page, and I do have lists on there that has a full list of what you need to survive. A full list. I even asked Chat GPT about it, and it's on there. And Chat GPT has a really good list, and I shared that list.
Okay.
So when you want to find anything current when it comes to prepping or any kind of knowledge that I'm putting out there, most likely I'm going to put it on my Facebook page first because my
okay.
website I'm still trying to get access to.
Got it.
And then
Um,
Sharon,
also-
one last thing. Oh, sorry. No, I didn't mean to
go
cut
ahead.
you off. I was going to say, we just did this process where we got policy experts from a variety of fields to contribute to our Black Papers policy initiative process through State of the People. And we don't have one on survival skills. So I would love if you would consider doing a Black paper on that to help expose our audience and our people, our communities to what's needed to be able to survive right now.
Yeah.
Your list, the other
Absolutely.
things that you feel comfortable sharing, we would love to have you. I would connect you to Dr. David Johns, who's the editor-in-chief of that process.
Okay.
Well, listeners, you all have heard it direct here from the expert herself
No, I'm not an
and what it means to survive. Well, as far as I'm concerned,
You're an expert.
you ain't said a silly thing yet. All of it makes sense for survival. And we want to make sure that we and our listeners are equipped for whatever the condition might be. Getting off the grid and living, more independently might be some folks' aim, and others it just might be, I don't know what might come, right? And how do I make sure I protect my family and myself? We thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Ms. Sharon, and want to make sure that you leave any contact information with us that we can share with the listeners that you are willing to, so that folks have a way that they can get directly to you. And of course, as you mentioned before, following you on your Facebook page.
So feel free. So one thing before I give that announcement is also, go hit your second supply stores like your Goodwills and whatnot and start purchasing shoes for your children that are 1, 2, 3, 4 sizes too big. Shoes and clothes. If you got infants, go buy them secondhand, get them washed and put those aside. Because when it comes to that, we're going to be suffering in the next 6 months to a year and beyond. So make sure that you've got enough clothes. Go out and buy your blankets. Go get the secondhand blankets and then wash them and then put them away. You can find more information, like I said, on me at afrovivalist.com. Afrovivalist on YouTube, which I don't do a lot. Afrovivalist on Instagram and Facebook, like I said.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Afrovivalist. We learned a lot. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome.
Y'all, we have had a full show and still so much to talk about. But want to make sure that we get the chance to issue what our audience enjoys hearing from each of us each week. And that is, what are your takeaways? Give me your CTA, Angela, Tiff. What do you want us to do or know?
Mine is to find 5 people in your city whose phone numbers you could memorize. And who you can stay connected to in a time of crisis. I would definitely encourage that. That's mine for this week.
That's a good one. Well, I want to thank everybody for my last CTA. So many people have sent me vegan recipes and vegan ideas. I don't know what I'm going to do in an apocalyptic America trying to be vegan. So I want to stay with the survival theme, though, because we got so much good information from our guests. I would say my CTA is learn. The earth is so generous with what the earth offers us. So even if you're in the city, learn gardening, like learn how to grow your own food, grow tomatoes, grow an avocado, which is great protein, grow onions, like herbs, all of those things. Yeah, I think that's a good idea because who knows what tomorrow is going to bring. So yeah, let's get back to like being self-sufficient just within ourselves.
I love that. Mine is, I guess, I don't know, maybe personal, but maybe I think hopefully applicable outside of individual. And that is, last night I participated in a call for a relative who is right now in surgery. I won't say many details, but am watching my phone for the updates that are coming and knowing that God's doing what he must do and will do for successful surgery. But what it reminded me of, as we all were on the Zoom talking last night, was how the history in our community of really secretive or being secretive around our health, keeping it very close to the vest, that the time that you are learning about a relative being gravely ill is when a relative is calling and saying, you need to call such and such because, they're on their last. And I just thought about how it has built a real trauma scar for me when I get the update, the call, because now I associate somebody's health update with, they're on their way out. And my dad's very much came like that. I mean, we had just finished the race for governor and he had just been campaigning. And then it's like everybody keeps things from you out of protecting and to keep it close. But what I wanted to salute was this hopeful energy within our community of being more transparent around ours and our family members' health journeys. I don't mean to broadcast it, but with each other so that we can kind of disrupt this cycle of secrecy there that is very deadly. And I think creates something I didn't really realize or really associate before, which is a real trauma in me about health and health updates and whether or not the only time you share is when somebody's about to tap out. And I think that tradition is deadly. I think is much more in the spirit of who we truly are as a people to be sharing with our close people, so that they can champion and pray for us, and help to keep us on the straight and narrow as we all try to navigate this life and live the best of it. So that's my CTA.
I like that. I don't know why we're so secretive, especially with Black folks.
Yeah.
Like
That's
we don't,
right.
I mean, like our grandparents, like I didn't want to worry anybody. Our
Absolutely.
parents,
Absolutely. My dad was that way. He didn't want to load on. And if there wasn't, it's like, you got enough to deal with in your life. You don't have to deal with mine either. And then some of it is like a little shame. Maybe he didn't go to his doctor every year. And so maybe he thought by having, avoided all that stuff that he was in some way part responsible for the situation. I mean, any number of things. Y'all may have ideas out there, listeners, family, around why we do that. And I do think we got to do a better job of just lifting it up. Angela, you've exhibited and been very transparent, I think, and beyond with our listening audiences as you're navigating it very personally. But I was talking to my sister and just completely lost control last night in the conversation because when I got the note about joining the Zoom, I thought that this, I'm like, am I just learning that there's something here that is about to happen? And I was afraid about joining. And the truth is our family has worked really hard over the last couple of years since the passing of both my dad and his brother's illness and my grandmother and grandfather, that we have got to do a better job of, one, just as a family and being in concert and connection, but two, as we all grow older, our health and how we can support each other through it.
Yeah. I love that. Well, this is why we encourage you all to please tell a friend about the show, because I we don't know everyone who listens, but we know most of y'all who listen. We have the same background. There's a lot of commonality here. So hopefully, in listening to this conversation, it will invite somebody to be more open about their health status and more open about something that they're going through health-wise. Don't do that to your kids. I have to tell you. Like, I've always had to hear about something going on with my mom from somebody else. And it's like, just, share that information with your kids. And if you know somebody who's going through something, please send them this episode so maybe they can be encouraged to share more. So tell a friend, sign up, like, subscribe, all of it.
New episodes drop every Thursday and Friday with solo pods on Monday. And I shouldn't say it, but sometimes, you get a little bit sprinkled in there on top, a little extra for a Monday greeting from me, possibly, and reliably, my friend and co-host, Angela Rye, on Tuesdays. This week, our podcasts here at Reason Choice are going to collide. Check out Off the Cup, that's CUPP, where Essie Cup talks with her girl and our girl, Jamil Hill, about her take on the WNBA, mental health in sports, and why there's no escaping politics. Y'all want to join in and listen to that. Don't forget to follow us on our social media and subscribe to our text or email list on nativelandpod.com. We are Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, and I'm Andrew Gillum. Welcome home, y'all. There are 495 days until midterm elections.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Rye, Gillum, and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth, even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reasoned Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.